And how, friend, is one devoted to wakefulness? Here, during the day, while walking back and forth and sitting, a monk purifies his mind of obstructive states. In the first watch of the night, while walking back and forth and sitting, he purifies his mind of obstructive states. In the middle watch of the night, he lies down on his right side in the lion's posture with one foot overlapping the other, mindful and clearly comprehending. Actually, this word, mindful and clearly comprehending, is sati sampajanya. Sati is recollection, and sampajanya is mindfulness. After noting in his mind the idea of rising, after rising in the last watch of the night, while walking back and forth and sitting, he purifies his mind of obstructive states. It is in this way, friend, that one is devoted to wakefulness. Therefore, friend, you should train yourself thus. We will guard the doors of the sense faculties. We will be moderate in eating. We will be devoted to wakefulness. Thus, friend, should you train yourself. So this devotion to wakefulness, here the Buddha says, during the daytime, a monk should purify his mind of unwholesome states. Unwholesome states meaning states of greed, hatred, delusion, states of sensual desire, states of ill will or anger, states of sloth and torpor, states of restlessness and worry and doubt. These are the 5 hindrances. So, to do that, we must always keep our mind on one of the 4 stations of recollection, the sati or satipatthana, the object of sati or satipatthana. This word sati, sometimes people translate it as mindfulness. It is not general mindfulness. It is a specific mindfulness. The proper translation for sati is recollection. That means always remembering your object of contemplation. Always remembering, because this word sati comes from a root word that means to remember. So to remember, to put your mind only on your object of meditation or contemplation, and not to allow it to run out to the 6 senses, to see things, to hear sounds, to smell, taste, and all that. So here the Buddha says during the daytime the monk should sit and walk to keep his mind in check, to maintain his samadhi. And then at night there are 3 watches of the night. The first watch is generally, if you take 12 midnight to be 12 o'clock, then 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. Is the first watch, the first 4 hours. These 3 watches, add them together, is 12 hours. So the first 4 hours is the first watch. The middle 4 hours from 10 p.m. until 2 a.m. Is the middle watch. And from 2 to 6 a.m. Is the last watch. So the Buddha said that his disciples, even the first watch, they should not go to sleep. They should maintain their wakefulness, not allow themselves to fall asleep. And then from 10 p.m. until 2 a.m. They should lie down, but still maintain sati sampajanya. To maintain sati sampajanya, that means you have to be mindful as well as recollect your object of meditation. So that is not easy to do, because when you are tired, to maintain your wakefulness is very difficult. But because the Buddha's disciples, they practice very hard, so they maintain their mindfulness until they are able, when their samadhi is good, they are able to maintain it. If they have 4 jhanas, then there's a chance they can maintain. If you don't have the 4 jhanas, I think it's quite impossible. Because your mind is weak, you tend to lapse into a sleep state. So it's because the Buddha's disciples practice like this until they have actually mindfulness 24 hours a day. That's why when they become Arahant, the Buddha says all Arahants have mindfulness 24 hours a day. In the Vinaya books, you cannot fault any Arahant, you cannot accuse an Arahant of any fault because his mindfulness is maintained 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So these are the three. So in the last watch, then he gets up, and then he still does walking and sitting, fighting. Actually, this meditation is basically a fight against sleep. Meditation is a fight against sleep. That's why meditation is so hard, so difficult. So these are the three things. One is guarding the doors of the sense faculties. Second one is moderation in eating. Because if you eat too much, you become very sleepy. And then third one is devotion to wakefulness. We come to the next sutta, 35.121. This sutta is also found in the Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta 147. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. Then while the Blessed One was alone in seclusion, a reflection arose in his mind thus: the states that ripen in liberation have come to maturity in Rahula. Let me lead him on further to the destruction of the asavas. That means to liberation. Stop here for a moment. This Rahula is actually the son of the Buddha. When he was 7 years old, the Buddha asked Sariputta, I think, to ordain him. So after that, he kept on the robes, and then later took the higher ordination. So because he was the Buddha's son, the Buddha was concerned for him. So the Buddha thought that it's time to lead him to enlightenment. Then in the morning, the Blessed One dressed and taking bowl and robe, walked for alms in Savatthi. When he had returned from the alms round, after his meal he addressed the Venerable Rahula. Take a sitting cloth, Rahula. Let us go to the blind man's grove for the day's abiding. Yes, Venerable Sir, the Venerable Rahula replied. And having taken a sitting cloth, he followed close behind the Blessed One. Now on that occasion, many thousands of Devatas followed the Blessed One, thinking, today the Blessed One will lead the Venerable Rahula on further to the destruction of the asavas. Then the Blessed One plunged into the blind man's grove and sat down at the foot of a certain tree on a seat that was prepared for him. The Venerable Rahula paid homage to the Blessed One and sat down to one side. The Blessed One then said to him, what do you think, Rahula? Is the I permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. Similarly, are forms permanent or impermanent? Is I consciousness permanent or impermanent? Eye contact, feeling, perception, volition, consciousness, permanent or impermanent? And to all this, he says impermanent. And then is the ear, etc. For all the 6 sense bases. All these, that means the 6 sense base, the sense organ itself, and then the sense object, and then the sense, the consciousness, then the contact, feeling, perception, volition, consciousness, for each of the different sense bases. So you see, the Buddha purposely, he asks very slowly, one sense base by one sense base, and each sense base is so detailed. First he'll ask forms, are forms permanent or impermanent? The eye permanent or impermanent? Then Venerable Rahula says it's impermanent. And then the Buddha makes him see that what is impermanent, subject to change and suffering, is not fit to regard it as this is I and mine. And then after that, it moves to the sense object, and then to the consciousness, and to eye contact. So every one of these is repeating what is impermanent. Is suffering or happiness? Then he has to say suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent, suffering, and subject to change, fit to be regarded. This is mine, this I am, this myself. And Venerable Rahula has to answer all these for so many times. You see, like one sense base, like the eye itself, how many times he has to go through? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 times. 8 times. Just one sense base. So 8 times 6 is 48, isn't it? 48 times he has to repeat all this. The Buddha purposely makes him repeat all this to drive home the point, what is impermanent, and suffering is not fit to be regarded as this is mine, this I am, this is myself. Seeing thus, Rahula, the learned noble disciple, experiences revulsion towards the eye, revulsion towards forms, revulsion towards eye consciousness, revulsion towards eye contact, revulsion towards anything included in feeling, perception, volition, consciousness arisen with eye contact as condition. He experiences similarly revulsion towards the ear and all the sense bases. Experiencing revulsion, he becomes dispassionate. Through dispassion, his mind is liberated. When it is liberated, there comes the knowledge it's liberated. He understands, destroyed is birth. The holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is no more for this state of being. This is what the Blessed One said. Elated, the Venerable Rahula delighted in the Blessed One's statement. And while this discourse was being spoken, the Venerable Rahula's mind was liberated from the asavas by non-clinging. And in those many thousands of devatas, there arose the dust-free, stainless vision of the Dhamma. Whatever is subject to origination is all subject to cessation. That's the end of the sutta. So the Buddha made this Venerable Rahula repeat all these statements until he really see it clearly. Then Venerable Rahula attain enlightenment, liberation. And the many thousands of devas and devis that were there listening, all of them attain the Dhamma vision, all attain stream entry. That's the most devas can attain. They only listen because they don't cultivate like us, because there's no suffering for them, no incentive to cultivate. So you see this, the Dhamma that leads one to enlightenment. We hear it so many times, but we still haven't become enlightened. That's why everybody has the time. 35.127. On one occasion, the Venerable Pindola Bharadvaja was dwelling at Kosambi in Gosita's park. I stop here for a moment. This Venerable Pindola Bharadvaja, you don't meet him many times in the suttas, but in the Vinaya books, he's quite famous. How he became famous was one day, a rich man, he wanted to see whether there were still any arahants in the world. So he sent a message all over the place, saying that he's going to hang a golden bowl, very high up, and which arahant has psychic power, he can fly up and take that golden bowl